everybody, and welcome back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today I have my February wrap-up part 2. So I'm very happy that I split this up into 2 parts because today is the last day of February and I have read an additional 13 books compared to when I spoke to you last. So this month I've read 26 books, which I have not done in a very long time. I definitely have the Black Author Readathon to thank for that because I was like determined to get a bingo. In the beginning I was like, I'm going to loosely participate, and then I was like, if I get a bingo, that's great, and then it turned into, I am getting a blackout. So I definitely have the Black Author Readathon to thank for the fact that I got through 26 books this month. I don't think I've ever had a reading month like that in the entire almost 8 years that I've been filming videos. So I'm very pleased with the fact that I thought ahead of time to do the first 13, or this would have been a very long video and I probably wouldn't even remember what to talk about. So let's just dive in. So like I said, I have 13 new books to talk about. I read 4 physical copies, 3 audiobooks, and 6, I think my number 6 Kindle Unlimited books, which is also another amazing thing that came out of this month is I really took advantage of my Kindle Unlimited subscription. I felt bad because I definitely was like neglecting what's on my shelf, but I don't really typically buy a whole ton of romance anymore, so like I really had to look to other forms and formats to get my books into this month and into the reading prompts. So I will say that was the one great thing is I definitely utilized my library this month, and I definitely utilized my Kindle Unlimited subscription, so that's exciting. So the first book that I read this month, well, not first book that I read this month, but first book that I have read for the second half of the month was The Other Madisons, The Lost History of a President's Black Family by Betty Kearse. And this is a words today. This is a nonfiction of Betty looking into her family history and her family lineage because every generation of her family has basically like a historian. They call them gringos, not gringos, that's not it. Griots or griotes. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. But basically those are people in every generation that are kind of in charge of their family's stories. And each person gets to have all of the stories that have been passed down, but they also add their own stories to the next generation, and it just keeps going. So according to her family's history, they were the descendants of a slave and President Madison. And she kind of wants to know the truth of that. Is that true? Is that real? And she kind of really goes back into her history. She goes to Virginia. She goes to Lagos. She goes to various different places that her family has come from, and kind of also tracking how slaves were brought over here and how her family probably came over here, just to try to see if there is truth to the fact that they're descendants of Madison. Is that something that they should be proud of? Is that something that they should be mad at? Because basically, growing up, they always kind of looked at it as a good thing. Like, it's a great thing. You've got Madison blood. You've got a president's blood in you. And she kind of isn't too sure if that's a good thing or not. I thought this was really well done. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed watching her take this journey, personally for herself and for her family. And I thought it was really a good read. Then I listened to Can't Escape Love by Alyssa Cole. This is the 2.6 novella in the Reluctant Royal series. So it comes between book 2 and 3, but there's also another novella that comes right before it. Can't Escape Love follows Regina's sister. We meet Regina in we meet her in book 1, but her major story is in book 2. But this is her sister, and she is going through a bit of insomnia, and really the only thing that gets her to go to sleep is listening to this guy solve puzzles. he normally like would go live and solve these puzzles, and his voice would put her to sleep. But one day he kind of stops making these videos, stops making these lives. So she reaches out to him and says like, hey, can I pay you money for you to record some things for me so that way I can go to sleep? And he's like, how about I do you one better? I will talk to you at night. I will give you a phone call and I will talk to you until you fall asleep. And then it turns into this kind of relationship where she's also helping him out because he is trying to plan this escape room that has to do with this anime that she actually really loves. So it's kind of a give and take where she helps him and he helps her, and it's their love story. I gave it 3 stars. This is probably my least favorite out of all of the books in the series. I just found that this one was very driven by all of these like anime worlds and X-Men references and all this, and it just felt like it was inundated with that, and I just really didn't understand the love story because I was just being so hammered over the head with all of these other references. So it was cute. It just wasn't my favorite when I compare it to all the other books. Then I read I Want to Be Where You Are by Christina Forrest, and this is a young adult novel, and we are following our main character, and her father has passed away. He died in a car accident when she was younger, and her mom is a very careful person, kind of doesn't like leave her daughter alone, like wants to know where she is at all times and wants to really keep her home and keep her safe. Her mom ends up going on a cruise, and she's like, here's my chance, because she really wants to be a dancer, and there's a possibility of her being able to join this school for her senior year, this like dance conservatory. And so she decides that while her mom is on this cruise, she's gonna get in her car and she's gonna drive to DC to audition, even though her mom does not want her to. And then before she leaves, one of her neighbors, who used to be a really good friend but now kind of turned to enemy, kind of is like, well, I'm going to tell your mom where you are if you don't take me to the train station in DC. So they end up on this car trip together. Things obviously go wrong. They obviously kind of re-spark their friendship and possible romance. I thought it was a really cute, sweet read. I think 16-year-old me would have absolutely loved this because it just reminded me of like Save the Last Dance, and why can't I say it's my like favorite movie, Center Stage. It just like reminded me of those old like movies that I used to really love when I was a teenager, and I feel like if I was a teenager I would have been obsessed with this, but as a 30-year-old woman I had to give it 4 stars. Then I read Eastern Lights by Brittany Cherry. This is the sequel in the Compass series, and I had read Southern Storms earlier on in the month. I gave them both 5 stars, but they are very different 5 stars. I think that I liked Southern Storms way more. I just felt like I was captivated by it more. Eastern Lights was still very much a 5-star read, but if I had to pick one that I liked more, I would definitely say Southern Storms. With Eastern Lights, we are meeting a character that we had met in the first book, and now it's like years later he's kind of left the town that the first book takes place in. He is a very wealthy man, and one Halloween he is out and he kind of meets this girl. They have the cutest meet cute ever, and he kind of decides to tell her, like, because she just got out of a bad relationship, and he's like, I can make you fall in love with me in the next 5 hours, so that way when we split up, like, your last relationship you'll have a good memory of and not a bad memory. So they have this challenge, they end up going their own separate ways, and then they end up re-meeting a couple years later, and she is about to marry a man that works for him, that is kind of like his partner, and they kind of have this second chance romance, and it was really sweet. I really liked the banter, so like I said, I still really enjoyed it. It's still a solid 5-star read, but I have to say that I think I liked Southern Storms better, and I cannot wait for the next book, and I think the next book comes out in August. Then I read Bingo Love, which I did not give a rating to. I read this from my library from Hoopla, and Bingo Love is a graphic novel, comic book type of book, and I don't typically read that, so that's why I don't feel comfortable rating it, because it's not my cup of tea. I don't care for them. Like, it was a cute little story, but nothing that I was overly excited about. I really needed to read it for the prompt to read a graphic novel for the Black Author Readathon, and this is the one that was available to me, so I just read it. But this is about two women that when they were children, they kind of have this really good bond as friends. And one day they kind of finally have this kiss, and somebody catches them and basically tears them apart and sends one of the girls back to go live somewhere else. So they are split up because it's not acceptable to be gay. And they both kind of lead these different lives, and it's about 50 years later or something like that, and they come back together. And it's just kind of them trying to figure out what their relationship is going to look like. I read the Jackpot edition, which I think if you're going to read this series, I highly recommend you check out the Jackpot edition because it does come with subsequent little stories that kind of help beef the story up a bit because they're comics, so they're very, very short. So I would highly recommend you get the Jackpot one so you can have more. They're written by different authors, and they have different illustrators. So it's kind of interesting to see the different takes on the relationship that these other authors have and illustrators have. So I didn't rate it because it's just not something that I have any expertise on. Then I read Prince on Paper. I listened to this on audio again through Hoopla. This is the third and final book in the Reluctant Royal series. I know that there's a spin-off series, but this is the final one in the original series. I thought this one was really cute. I gave this one 4 stars. If I had to choose a favorite out of this entire series, I would also choose the first book, which was A Princess in Theory. I don't know why that one just really did it for me, and the rest were really, really good, but just nothing topped that first book for me. This follows the cousin of Nalady, who we meet in the first book. So she's her cousin, and it's her romance. There's a prince, I guess you can call him Prince Johann, and he's from a different country, but he is best friends with the Prince Thepizzo. I can never say his name. The TH in the beginning of that word just throws me off for some reason. Prince Thepizzo from the first book. So he is best friends with him. She is the cousin of the woman in that book. So like that's how they like meet. They're here for the wedding, and they end up in a fake dating situation. And I thought it was really cute. I still gave it 4 stars, and I read this entire series in 1 month. All 3 books and the 2 novellas. So it's safe to say that this series was a good series because I couldn't get enough of it. And I highly recommend you listen to it on audio. I don't know what it is about that narrator, but that narrator just like sold me and hooked me. So highly recommend the audio if you're going to listen to it. Then I read Truly by Carmel Rhodes, and I read this through Kindle Unlimited. And I'm very glad I did because this is my second 1-star read of the year. In this book, we meet Truly. Her mom died years prior, and she lives with her dad. And it's about to be they're going into I think they're seniors in high school. Yeah, they're seniors in high school. They graduate. While they're at graduation, Truly's boyfriend breaks up with her, and she's devastated. And then she goes to a graduation party where she meets her boyfriend's brother. Well, they've met before, but he's kind of been a jerk to her, and he continues to be a jerk to her. And then there is a road trip element in here as well, because before her going away to college, her and her best friend have these plans to go and take this road trip that her mother took around the same time in her life, and she kind of wants to see what her mother has seen and live kind of what her mother has lived. This is a dark romance, and this was extremely dark. I really didn't like how situations were handled. I understand bully romances to an extent, but this, especially knowing that they were teenagers, like she just turns 18 in this book, on the road trip, and just seeing how he treated her and seeing how she took it as love really bothered me. There are a ton of triggers for this book, so I would highly recommend you check this one out because this was rough. Like, this was brutal, and like not in a way that I felt like the character learned from anything. And the fact that there were certain situations that were definitely not healthy, that were seen as healthy, and these healthy relationships turned out to not be healthy, really irked me. So unfortunately, I didn't like this one. I've seen so many 5 and 4 star reads, but for this one, like, I could not do it. Like, I had to keep stopping and talking to Patrick about how awful the events were that were taking place in this book. And I just felt like it set out a really poor message for teens. So I really don't recommend this book. But obviously people love it, so there must be something I didn't see. Then I read The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon, and this was our buddy read with Kendra from Kendra Loves Books. We read this and talked about it on Instagram. This is a romance novel about Shay. She is working for this radio company, and there's Dominic, and he is new. She's been there for like 10 years. It's kind of an age gap because she is much older than him. They are working for this radio show, and they end up pitching this idea for a show that would involve like exes talking about previous relationships, and like thinking and like talking about how relationships work and what doesn't work in relationships, hosted by exes. And their boss kind of lumps them in and has them have this pretend relationship, and that they are true exes even though they're not. And so they end up becoming the host of this show. There's obviously a love story that happens in this, and I thought it was really fun. I also liked that Rachel is Jewish, and she definitely put a little bit of her Jewish, oh my gosh, why can't I speak today? Her Jewish culture into the book, which I thought was really cool, and I wish that there was more of it in there. It did get a bit slow at points, which is why I think that I didn't give it the 5th star. I think I had been reading so much romance this month. I read more romance this month than I have read in a very long time. And I think at this point I was just getting to the point where I was kind of drained, and I wasn't really going to enjoy anything that I picked up, so I think that's why I couldn't give it the 5th star, because I just kind of was like, okay, I know where this is going, but I still found it to be a really fun read, and I think that it was perfect for Valentine's Day. If you were in the mood for a sweet, cute romance, I definitely think that you would like this one. After that, I read Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, and this is a young adult novel following our main character. She is 16 years old, and she gets into this UNC program where she gets to go to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, as a high schooler, and basically get credits, and then she would eventually hopefully go to college there as well. Must be a thing this month. I read a lot of books where the mother has passed away. So her mother has passed away. She gets into this program and she goes there. And when she's there, she witnesses this like demon attack. And she's never seen anything like it before. And it kind of really causes her to look into what's happening. In her mother's death. This has a lot to do with like the Knights at the Round Table and King Arthur, and another one that I felt like it did get slow at points, but it's also something that is 100% out of my comfort zone. I don't read a whole ton of fantasy, so some of this I think went a little over my head. There's a lot of terminology that I'm just not familiar with, but overall I think it was really fun, and the way it ended makes me really want to check out book 2, so hopefully book 2 comes out this year so I could follow up with that. Then I listened to Love on Catalina Cove by Brenda Jackson. I gave this book 2 stars. This one started out very well. We start in this little town of Louisiana, like the coast of Louisiana, and it was the perfect setting. And we are meeting our main character, Vashti, and she is going back home where she hasn't been in a very long time. When she was a teenager, she had a pregnancy that her parents didn't approve of, but the pregnancy ended up not resulting in a baby. Unfortunately, the baby is born and then dies a few days later, so she really hasn't come back to this town because this town basically ostracized her when she was a teenager, and so she hasn't been back in like over a decade. And her aunt used to own this inn, so she has to come down to sell the inn because her aunt has now passed away. And the very first day as she's going, she gets pulled over by Sawyer. He is the new sheriff in town, and it is their romance. He is a single dad to a teenager, and things start to unravel and unveil themselves. I gave this book 2 stars because by the end, there were just like all these twists that just like were twists just to shock you. And they felt so unrealistic. And I know it's fiction and I know that it's not going to be realistic, but it just felt like, and bam, better yet, and bam, let me surprise you again, and bam. And it just like, I wish I could tell you what they were because it was just like so much, too much. And I couldn't, you could suspend your disbelief typically, but for some reason with this one, it just was out of control and I could not suspend my disbelief. You guys are going to rate this like a 2-star video at this rate. Then I read Black Shot by Kennedy Ryan, which is another one that I gave 2 stars to. Unfortunately, this is the sequel book to Long Shot, which I gave like 4.5 stars to. This one just had so many tropes in it that I hate. So we are following Jared, and Jared is the brother of August, and we meet August in the first book. We actually meet Jared in the first book as well, but so he's now on his own. We start the book when he's in college, and he has feelings for our main character, Banner, and something happens that kind of makes it that they are not going to have a relationship together, and now it's like a decade later again, and they come into each other's lives. She is also she's also a sports agent just like Jared is, and they come back into each other's lives, and it's their second chance romance, but like I said, there's a lot of tropes in here that I don't love. I hated both characters. Jared is not the man I thought he was based off of how we saw him in the first book. Banner is a wishy-washy character who sends mixed signals. I did not like the way that Jared talked and treated Banner at all. I can't say why, because there are events that take place in this book that cause him to act the way he does, and I don't love his reactions to her life right now, and I don't know how to say it other than spoiling it, so I'm not going to say anything. So, I love her writing style. I'm not going to quit reading. I just think because of the fact that I was reading it in progression of a series, like I had no choice. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know what type of tropes I was getting into. So, I hate giving it 2 stars because it's my own fault for not liking these tropes, but also I didn't enjoy it, so I can't give it more than 2 stars. Then I read Loving Mr. Daniels by Brittany C. Cherry. This book has been on my wish list for a very long time. Like, I had it on my Goodreads want to read shelf years ago before I even realized who Brittany C. Cherry actually was. And for some reason, I've just never picked it up until now. I picked it up because I thought it was going to be an age gap romance. I still use it as an age gap romance, but they're only 3 years apart, so not really age gap. But this is a teacher-student romance. We meet our main character, whose sister has just recently passed away, and her mother basically can't look at her because it's her twin, like, her twin sister passed away. And her mom can't basically look at her, so she sends her to go live with her dad, who basically has not been a part of her life for the past few years. Because of the illnesses, the girls didn't go to school, so she's actually supposed to be in college, but she's a senior in high school. She is 19 years old, and on her way to her dad's house, she has this really sweet romantic, like, meet cute with this man who they have a bond over Shakespeare and writing, and it's a very cute meet cute on the train. And they don't even find out for a while that he's actually her teacher. He's new to the high school that he's teaching at. She's in his class. I love this book. I always get nervous when it comes to a teacher-student romance. My Dark Vanessa and I did not work out very well. But this one was just different. They aren't that much, like I said, their ages are not that different. So she's 19, he's 22. So they felt more compatible, and it wasn't in a predatory way. Even when they found out that, like, he was her teacher, they really did want to distance themselves. They didn't necessarily want to be together because they knew it wasn't appropriate. They talked about possibly waiting until she graduated, so it kind of took that, like, predatory aspect out of it. They are also both dealing with a lot of tragic events happening in both of their lives, and events that continue to happen throughout the book. So I will say that it doesn't feel gross, because there's a way of making that feel gross, and this does not feel that way. So I gave it 5 stars. I did cry. It was a really sweet story, and I'm so glad that I finally read it. And then after that, I had one more book on my bingo board that I needed to knock out, and it was a romantic suspense. In the end, this one wasn't very romantic. This is actually like a prequel novel to a series, and we are following this married couple who are attending a wedding, and the bride gets murdered in the middle of taking her vows, and it's up to this married couple who work for this, like, newspaper to, like, find out who killed her. So, like, there were, like, a few romantic moments where they were like, ooh, let's get it on, but, like, it was closed behind doors. You didn't actually see it happen. So I wouldn't necessarily call it romantic suspense, but it was definitely a mystery, so counting it anyways. I gave it 3 stars. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I didn't really think anything of it, to be honest. It was alright. The twist at the end was half shocking. I predicted part of it. So overall it was decent. I don't think I'll continue on with the series. I think that this had too many characters in it, and I don't know if you needed to know, like, I didn't know if you needed to read the rest of the series before you read the prequel to actually understand who these people were, why they were all there, and all their interconnectedness, because there were so many that I was kind of confused. This book was only 214 pages, and there were a lot of people to keep straight, and I thought it was okay. I don't necessarily recommend it, but I don't not recommend it either. I'm currently reading 2 books. I'm reading Ways to Make Sunshine by Renee Watson. I'm actually reading this with one of my group of girls at my school. We are in the middle of a character studies unit right now, and they get put into little book clubs to read the same book and talk about it and discuss it and talk about what they're noticing about their characters. And I had an extra copy of it, so I told the girls that I was going to unofficially join their buddy read. So far, what I know about this book is we meet Ryan, and I believe is she in 3rd grade? I don't remember. She's younger. It's a middle grade novel. And she goes to school, and the sub calls her name, and the sub doesn't believe that it's really her because Ryan's a boy name. And the sub just treats her differently because she's a girl, and cringe. And then she goes home, and her family is like, let's have ice cream for dinner. And she's like, what's up? And she finds out that the landlord is selling their house, which means that they have to move. They get to still stay in the same school, but they are going to move closer to school. Her dad got a new job, which requires him to work the night shift, so she's going to have to start walking to school. So she's going to be dealing with a whole lot of change, and I'm really excited to see what it's going to be like. So far, I'm really enjoying the writing. The girls who are reading this with me as well, they can't get enough of it. They already want to read more Renee Watson. They want the sequel today, even though we're only 3 chapters in. And, yeah, so I always love that I, like, gave something to somebody who they don't want to put it down. They're really obsessed. So I'm going to continue reading that through the month of March with them. The only book that I, like, didn't finish my TBR is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. I just started this today. I got very into finishing the Black Author Readathon that I didn't pick this up like I was supposed to for the buddy read. I'm 1 chapter in. When I finish this, I'm going to continue reading this today. Definitely not going to get done today. It will definitely be done in March. So those are all the books that I read at the end of February. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry that I'm literally tongue-tied today. I don't know what's wrong with me. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, everybody.